confident and quick, they become slow. So be slow if you must, but let the heart still play its true part. Love still as once you loved, deeply and without patience. Let God and the world know you are grateful that the gift has been given. The gift has been given. The Gift by Mary Oliver, from her book Felicity. Did anyone ever teach you how to be a friend? Honestly? Not me. Anybody ever teach you how to be a friend? Oh, yeah. You know, I've said this many years. I've been involved in education for decades, but it's one of the things I think is a glaring absence in the education system. We do not teach people about the issues that are most important about becoming authentically human, like right relationship, healthy communication, and certainly how to be a friend. You have two handouts there. One is to give you what I mentioned earlier about the 13 different types of intimacy. And in my experience of observing relationships and being involved in different types of relationships, that the biggest struggles come when we're not really clear about what the relationship is. Call it what category, what's expected, etc. And there can be so many misunderstandings. So many misunderstandings. So the first handout gives you the types of intimacy. The second one hopefully would help invite you to take a closer look at your relationships in general as you see that they're called circles of intimacy and support. Some people would put the particular category that's listed in a different arena in those circles of support. And that's fine, as long as you know what that means. The other thing I'd ask you is it mutual? Does the other person see that? Again, that's can be where a lot of hurt comes from. A lot of hurt comes from. When you tell somebody, oh, you're my best friend, and they find out you've got 35 best friends, what does that say to them? Okay? So I really encourage you on your own time, take the opportunity to reflect upon these two charts that I've given you. Hopefully it will ease some of the tension and stress and give you more understanding. In a sense that an authentic relationship, an authentic friendship, is when it's mutual, it's reciprocal, and it's equal. Hopefully that should ring a bell for you as a Christian, because that's the way God loves, in God's own identity. It's mutual, reciprocal, and it's equal. That's a sign of a really healthy relationship where there's a sense of a back and forthness and equality. There's a sense of a mutuality, a mutual support, a mutual reverence, a sense of coming together and seeking the best of the other. And sometimes that can be at great cost. Great cost. So here are some guidelines of how to be a friend. First one is to recognize the process. And there's a time of getting acquainted. And it's more than just what's your name. What do you do for a living? Where do you live? What's your family? But let's face it, you know when you've been in a situation, especially in a large group, that's usually the way we start off as human beings. We look for the similarity. How can I connect with this person? Oh, you got your hair like mine, you know? Or your last name's the same. We look for anything to try and connect. That getting acquainted period needs some time. We can't rush it. And with each question that you're asking of the other person, or each part of you you're sharing, you're trusting, you're taking these steps of trusting that they're meeting you at the same level. If you begin to notice that he or she is sharing less and less, as you're sharing more and more, you need to take a big step back. Big step back, for various reasons. It could be that they're afraid of intimacy. They're not willing to be that vulnerable with you. And the more you put yourself out, the more subconsciously you're thinking, oh, they're just like me. You know, their values, we can project so much onto them. But have they really spoken to that? Have you really heard them say it? Have you observed this in practice? Those are all things that need to be backed up by facts. Otherwise, you're living in a fairy tale. Secondly, casual relating. This is why one of the things we teach the seminarians is, when you meet someone, you don't ask them to come to dinner with you. First thing is, let's go out for a cup of coffee, or go for a walk. You start small, and to recognize that this is something that could be meaningful down the line, but may not be mutually for the other person. They're checking you out as well. So what would it look like casually for you? When do you start sharing pictures of places or people or animals that you love or appreciate? Because all of that is sharing in an hopefully appropriately vulnerable way. You probably already know this, but when you are invited to somebody's house, make sure you look around what's in the room. It's a wonderful short technique of getting a short thumbnail sketch of who they are. What pictures do they have on the wall? What bits of artwork or statuary? What things are out? What's missing? I worked with a man, a priest, who the entire time he was at the seminary, he was right next door to me, he kept his door open so I saw this. He never put his pictures up. I'm not kidding you, they're all lined up along the floor. That said so much to me. Wow, he doesn't plan to stick around very long. Sure enough, he wasn't there very long. So we can do things unconsciously that are sending out messages, the discomfort. Are there the pictures that are missing? Ask questions about it if you're there. You've talked a lot about da-da-da, but I don't see any pictures here. Listen to the story behind it. Okay? The third level is closeness. What would you define as being close to somebody? How do you know that you feel close to them? Would they say the same thing? If we brought them into the room and asked them questions we're asking you, would it be similar? Would you be surprised? So if you look again at that list of the different types of intimacy, you'll see what I mean in the sense of you may think you're really close to one of your best buddies at work. And the primary way you've been relating is teasing, joking, off-color jokes. And guys, let's face it, that's usually how we lead. And we think we're really close until your wife says to you, did you know this about so-and-so? What do you mean? How'd you know that? Well, I asked him. Or his wife told me. No, we don't talk about that stuff. So that's a real eye-opening statement, because it means you're still in a casual relating. You're not in the area of closeness at all, even though you may think so. And finally, intimacy. Intimacy, as you see in that list, comes in lots of different flavors and colors and presentations. Being intimate with one person may be very different than another person. And of course, the gender of the person will affect that, the age of the person, the life experience, the culture, all these things. So is there anyone here, don't raise your hand, but is there anyone here that cannot improve in their friendships, relationships? I don't think so. I know I continue to improve, working on it. Whether it's practicing communication skills, when, where, and what to share, all of these things. And even asking simple questions about, how would you like me to call you? Sometimes we quickly can give people nicknames we haven't asked their permission. We find out later, they tell us behind our back that I can't stand that nickname. Have you told him? No. Why not? I want to hurt his feelings. So, in other words, things that we can take for granted as a sign of closeness, even though we didn't get permission, we just blatantly give a person a nickname. Those of you with a Christian background, you know that just as last Sunday we had that very succinct gospel where Jesus asked, can you summarize the teachings that you've been giving people? Can you summarize the scriptures? He said, yes. Love God with your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. It's like a 3-in-1. Is that one mirrors the other. What that means for us in a reflected form is that this is meant to be a driving, meaning, substance, process of how we are to live our lives. In our relationships, we are to love. What that means in plain English is we are to do our best to improve the way that we love others, beginning with ourselves. So the things that we pick up along our life, or the things we learn academically, or the things that we learn in other relationships that are helpful or not helpful, all these come together, generally speaking, that can help us to become better lovers. Wouldn't you want to become a better lover? I would like to ask you for a favor. The next week, would you ask 3 people that you think are really close to you and simply say, I want you to be honest with me, but could you tell me what you think I should do to become more loving? Not just to you, but to people. Because you've known me for years, and you know things about me that I'm sure could put this together, but I'm seriously want to get better at loving. All right? And listen carefully to what they say. I think I'm a pretty good listener. But I've been surprised when I've asked people, they've told me, you're not as good as you think you are. Ouch. That hurts. And then I take a deep breath and say, okay, what ways can I improve? Okay, one of them was interrupting. I really worked hard in stopping that. So to do that, don't be surprised if people will give you a list of 4 or 5 things. Like, well, wait a second, that's enough. But the very fact that they're being honest with you, you're saying to this person, I want to become better in relating to you. And it's a real humble statement and a humble task to move forward. And many of us in this room have been trained as therapists, counselors, psychologists, etc., or we've been in therapy. We've experienced some who are good or not good, spiritual directors, directees, etc. So you know this is a wonderful opportunity for each of us to mature as lovers. There's a real difference between healthy and unhealthy friendships. If I could give this a real quick summary, the sign of a healthy friendship or healthy relationship is you feel that you can be your best self, your authentic self, with this person. You can say and do whatever you want, and you know they're still going to love you. As one of my friends says, well, no, that's not the way I define it. Somebody I know that I'm in a healthy relationship with, I can call them at 2 a.m. and ask them to bail me out of jail. Well, that's a funny way of saying it. Yeah, there you go. Okay? Or to be able to know that you're not always going to be at your best, and this person will still love you and accept you and be there for you. That you're at your best with this person because you know that even if you say something like, I've never shared this with anybody, they're not going to say, just a second, I'm going to get some notes here to put in the newspaper. No, they take you seriously and say, wow, thank you. And listen carefully. And you feel their love. You feel their acceptance. And you recognize that this is a precious gift. An unhealthy relationship is what, in whatever way you feel, this could be in family, it could be in marriage, I'm talking about your original family, in marriage, it could be grown siblings, it could be at work, it could be neighbors, but where you do not feel free enough to be yourself. And so you put up all these filters, these masks. I'm this way with this person. I'm this way with that person. In other words, you don't feel like you're being authentic. You're just putting on an act. And what happens is the person begins to believe the act. If they see you outside that act, what are you going to say then? There's a true story written up as a case study about this particular psychologist who had this client. And he was befuddled by this dream that happened in his life, and he wanted someone to help guide him. And so he made an appointment with a psychologist, and the psychologist helped him with the dream, and came back week after week. It seemed like he always had another dream, which was very evocative. About the 8th appointment, he came in, there's a whole different energy about him. The psychologist said, there's something different about it. What's the matter? He goes, well, I'm sorry, but I have a confession to make. Oh, what's that? He said, for the last 4 weeks, I've been making up those dreams. What do you mean? He says, yeah. He said, well, why would you do that? He said, you seem to be so interested in me in the dream, I thought I didn't want to disappoint you. Wow. So here is this man ideally paying to be authentic via his dreams, was disingenuous. because he felt it was more important to please the psychologist. That says a lot. It says a lot then. This is an example of psychological pickpocketing. I have such a need for a friend or to be liked, I will do whatever it takes. What do you want me to do? You want me to dance? Okay, I'll do that for you. Want me to tell a lie? I do that. Not healthy. David Rico, a psychotherapist from here in Santa Barbara, has written wonderful books in the area of relationships. And I like what he says about, he calls it the 5 A's that open us up. First one is attention. That when you give your full attention to someone, it gives them the freedom and the affirmation of feeling they're important to you, or what they have to say is important. And so they automatically begin to open up. This is tough if you're in a situation where several people want your attention at once. Now, I must admit, at least the research I've read, ladies, you can correct me, but women seem to do better at this than men. I watched my mother, remember, mother of 11, she could be on the phone with somebody and doing something in the kitchen sink, and she'd hear the baby cry in the other room. Go check on so-and-so. I don't hear anything. Go check. Yes, Mom. And she was right. In other words, diverse attention can work for someone from time to time, but ideally, if you want to grow in a depth of relationship, you want to put your full attention. This is why prayer works for some people, especially when you're in a big fix. And maybe that's one reason why people pray, because they know God's going to listen. And they give their full attention because they're in need. It works with any relationship. The second A is acceptance. When someone feels accepted, they'll be more prone to share with you not only more, but they'll be more prone and encouraged to let go of any other blocks or obstacles between you and the other person. Maybe they haven't been quite honest with you in the areas of life, and we're giving you a bit more background in life so they can be better understood by you. But that feeling of being accepted. And yes, it's true, sometimes you have to say that in a few different ways. The third A is appreciation. Not only words of appreciation, but signs of appreciation. Perhaps little gifts or little stories that let them know that whatever they've done for you has helped you in your life. Third is affection. Affection within appropriate guidelines, appropriate boundaries, knowing what is mutually acceptable and appropriate to the depth of the relationship. Sometimes in our particular culture, we tend to jump too fast in the arena of physical affection, and that the weight of the relationship, responsibility of the relationship, is not ground enough to carry it for very long. The flip side is also true, to ask what is appropriate. Affection, remember, is more than just physical, more than just touch, embrace, kiss, etc. It's also emotional affection. The tenderness with which you speak, the way that you listen, all these things put together add up to he, she does care for me, respects me, honors me. And often it wants to be celebrated or honored in the way of, let's say, holding hand or loving embrace, but you know what it means. The difficulty in this area, especially physical affection, is the clarity of the message can be confused. One person gives you a kiss on the cheek. Does that mean he, she likes you? Does that mean let's take the next step? Ask. I know it doesn't feel romantic, it doesn't feel normal in a sense, but it's the best way to do it. As you go with the words, the expression. And the last A is allowing. Allowing whatever comes up within you and between you and the other to be honestly heard, received, and responded to. Heard, received, and responded to, for good or for ill. Ouch, that hurt. Yeah, ouch, that hurt. What was that for? What was that about? You've never said that, you've never done that. Okay? So it allows you to be able to respond clearly or to speak to it in such a way that it can be helpful to the relationship. I'm not sure you've heard the old English word. It's now obsolete. It's called incarn. You've heard the word incarnation? Okay, incarn. It's an old medical word that meant to cause flesh to grow over. I love that. Cause flesh to grow over, as in a wound. So in effect, when people experience these 5 elements coming from you, you are helping them to grow new flesh over any previous wounds. This is why it is so powerful. A new way of looking at their life restored. So, for example, let's suppose one of your original family wounds was emotional abandonment. Okay? And so, throughout your life, you vacillated between not being willing to be vulnerable to another person, or you run away from relationships, you got really close and said, "No, that's too close, I want to go further." Or wanting to be present in a multiplicity of ways to lots and lots of people who just look at you and smile. Oh, they must love me. In other words, there's no sense of discernment between the difference of what's coming at you. But when you truly feel attended to, appreciated, listened to, appropriately affectionate, and allowing the relationship to develop in its own time, you can sense, wow, maybe I can begin to trust. It doesn't mean you jump in all the way, but you're giving yourself permission to go slowly with this, or to follow in the manner that you need to at this time. And if you reach a point where you feel like you're very uncomfortable, you feel free to speak to that. So, you know, I don't feel comfortable with that right now. Let me hold off on that, whatever that is. Going together on a vacation, watching a movie, or whatever it may be. It's a real personal thing. And this is why it's a mutual self-intimacy as well as learning how to be intimate with the other. This is one of the reasons, in my opinion, it's so hard to be on track with this. In one of my lonely times, I picked up my pen and began to write a poem. And like I said, I love poetry for a few decades now, and I found it to be a wonderful way of expressing deeper truths that I'm not able to find in particular music. So this is one that I wrote, and I share it with you because it's a way of encouraging you to allow your feelings to find words that connect with your heart or your soul. Resting in the gaze of the other, I discover myself anew. Sitting in the silence of the moment, I'm invited to trust all moments. Being in this sacred space, I have found my home. When you honor what you're experiencing inside you, you are blessing your own appropriate self. It encourages that artistic part of you, that musical part of you, that part of you that aches to be noticed. To be noticed is a big thing. Think about when you're a little girl, little boy, in first or second grade, the teacher asked a question. You're trying to raise your hand as high as you can. You want to be just called on or noticed. But it's rare to be called on. How do you feel? So those little things begin to eat away at our life, or into your distrusting. Well, maybe I'm not the prettiest. Maybe I'm not the smartest. Maybe I'm not the most athletic. Can you still receive the gift that you are? You probably have these gifts, but you might be a late bloomer. It might take you a while to get to that place where people appreciate you. I was one of those. When I went to my 10-year high school reunion, they voted me the most changed. I must admit, I thought, I wonder if that's true or if they just now have begun to see me. So, some of us are very successful in elementary school in some areas, but maybe not so in high school. And some are more successful in high school, others college, others post-grad, others midlife, beyond. We all grow at our own rate. Is it so hard for us to see? It's true with our relationships. You don't need to raise your hand. My guess, those of you who are married, you recognize that you're different, your spouse is different the day you're married. If not, something's wrong. Because it's love that transforms. It's love that energizes. It's love that allows us to see again and again from lots of different angles who we are and who the other person is. So like anything, relationships, certainly friendships, have certain requirements. So I want to share with you 4 that I see. First off is discipline. Taking time to connect and learning how to appropriately relate to this particular person. So again, I refer you to the circles of support and intimacy. What does that mean to connect in this particular relationship? What does it mean to learn how to appropriately relate to this person, this situation? Keeping in mind that every relationship has a history, because every person has a history. I remember reading a book called Marriage, Dead or Alive. It's a classic, I'm sure you've heard of it, by Dr. Guggenbo Craig. He says something that really makes you stop and think. He says, in every marriage bed, there's at least 6 couples. I'm like, what? Well, you have husband and wife. You have mother and father over here, this man, mother and father, this woman. And emotionally, they bring those relationships, those intimate love stories together, and hopefully creating a new love story. It took me a while to really unpack that, because this is really kind of Freudian here. But there's a lot of truth in that, is that you may find yourself triggered by something a friend of yours says, or doesn't. You know, where'd that come from? And you sit with it long enough in silence and you realize, oh my God, this memory just flashed in my mind. I was 7 years old, There you go. That's the way God heals us. It's in the ordinary. The extraordinary love of God reaches into us and helps to see the experience from a whole different level. It's called healing of memories. The second requirement is concentration. Concentration. Obviously, this means listening well. Listening well and focusing on a relationship. This may seem too mundane to you, but one of the things I've learned from my work in ministry is the need to make appointments. The need to make appointments. If something is really important to you that you want to talk to your partner, to your friend, to your spouse, to anyone, say, could we set a time to talk about something that's important to me? And immediately say, well, why can't we talk now? It's like, well, it's pretty clear to me from my perspective that you're just not in a space to do it. I mean, you're watching a football game, and I'm doing the dishes, whatever. And it's not judgment, just saying, I want to make sure I have your full attention. That's fair. If the relationship's important to you, say, let's set a time. Because usually we only do that when there's a major problem. But if you do it as a regular practice, you're saying to the other person, listen, you're important to me. I just want you and me to focus on our time together so we can deal with something I think is important for us to talk about. Ladies, please don't use the term, we need to talk. Because that says to a guy, we got a problem. Say something like this. Listen, I think we have an opportunity to be able to address something that's very important to both of us. What is it? You don't have to tell him. But just let him know. You're giving him a warning. I mean, the other one's like a shot out of left field. What do you mean? What's wrong? There's nothing wrong. Plus, it sets up this adversarial relationship. Would you agree? Yeah. Now, having said that, that's a general comment, but your husband is a unique man. You ask him what's the best way for you to address your need to want to talk. He may say, here's a language that works better for me. Okay? And ladies, same thing. If there's something, the way he says something, let him know. That hurts when you say that. Or that doesn't work for me. Okay? That gives me the opposite feeling. All right. What can you hear that will help you feel more comfortable with what I'm trying to say? Like I said, this is a lifelong work. The third thing is patience, practicing patience. In other words, this means respecting the pace of the relationship. You can't go faster than the one who needs to go slowest. Respect the pace of the relationship. This may take weeks, months, or years. And by all means, ask the person what will help us to sustain the pace that we're going at. If you notice them dropping further and further behind? What can bring us at a more equal pace as we move forward? Well, for one thing, the last time we had a vacation was 4.5 years ago. Ouch. That's a good message. Okay? So what would work better for you? How often would you like to have some vacation time? You want one big vacation, a few days together, all that type of thing. Every couple's unique. Every friendship's unique when it comes to that. The other thing is to develop a depth that can withstand stresses. Develop a depth. In other words, let the foundation grow deeper so that it can handle stresses in the future. Why is it so important? Well, a little wisdom from St. Ignatius of Loyola. He said, the times of consolation are given to us by God to sustain us in times of desolation. So if you're not building moments, experiences, memories, opportunities of consolation in your relationship with this person, then no wonder when high stress hits, one or both of you get knocked off the rails, and whatever, what just happened. So again, this is why I encourage you, in all your relationships, please, in your conversations, practice dropping a question or two that's meaningful. Not, how much did you make this last year for your bonus? Is that really helpful to develop intimacy? No. That just ups the ante to this competitive nature. Okay? But questions like, what did your mother teach you about being a woman? What did your grandmother teach you about being a woman? What did your father teach you about being a father? Your grandfather? What did you learn from two of the most painful experiences in your life? Yes, all these are meant to be a what? Oh, wow. Not meant to hit you here. It's meant to hit you here. This is what creates community. This is what deepens friendship. Did you see the Dodgers win the World Series? No, after you've had a shot or two to celebrate the World Series, you're on to the next thing. But people remember the depth of sharing that level. You know? And they'll refer to it as being helpful. You know, I've been privileged, and I mean that, deeply privileged. I've been a spiritual director and confessor for many, many years. And often I'll say to the penitent or the directee, thank you for your trust in me. You know, I wish you'd share this with other people. Oh, I thought I could never do that. Going on. Oh my God, what would people say? I said, well, I'm one person. I'm deeply moved by what you share. Yes, it was your weakness. Yes, it was your struggle, but look where you're at now. That God can use even the negative, painful, difficult struggles of our life to make something new out of us. And go deeper and further. We can help people by our sharing. And to recognize that there's lots to learn from each other. And the last requirement is to develop a deeper concern for the other and what that would look like. This requires courage and risk in appropriate ways of vulnerable sharing. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And you hear about the famous 36 questions to help you fall in love? Yeah, it was published a few years ago, New York Times, developed by a psychologist. And I want to share with you, obviously it was developed for couples, but as I read through it, you can share this with your friends by asking these questions. Because they're a combination of very deep questions and what I would call surface questions, as a way of getting to know the person, you know, up, down, in between, everything. If you just go online and type in 36 questions to fall in love, and it will pop up for you. Okay? You get a nice little listing of the questions. And these are the type of things you could share over a meal. Those are a lot easier than my questions. So this is the work that's given to us to be able to deepen our love for each other and the practice of loving each other. It's not easy. It takes a lot of concentrated work and a willingness to unpack the elements in our own life that we may not be as much aware of. So what I'd like to do this time is to invite you to get into groups, 3 or 4. And I have 2 questions for you, as you might have guessed. First one is going back to the first talk. What have you learned you learned from your times of loneliness? What have you learned from your times of loneliness? Secondly, what do you find most difficult to change about yourself? What do you find most difficult to change about yourself? Okay? What have you learned in your times of loneliness? And what do you find is most difficult to change about yourself? So if you could be back in about 20 minutes. Okay? So I certainly invite you to go outside. If you feel that you're more concerned about being in chairs, you can stay here. Okay? Just as long as you'll allow our movement around here to distract you. But okay, so groups of 3 or 4. If it feels more appropriate to you that you want to go off 2 by 2, you can do that. This is your retreat. You do what feels right to you. Okay? We'll see you at 2:30.